everybody. Today I wanted to talk about whether or not Georgia, which voted for Joe Biden, Raphael Warnock, and Jon Ossoff in 2020, will stay a Democrat state or whether it will switch back to being a solidly Republican state. So let's get into it. Georgia has 16 electoral votes, and they're expected to keep that number of votes after the 2020 census. So their population has not grown enough to warrant another electoral vote in the last 10 years. So if you look at the election history of Georgia, specifically the last 6 presidential elections, you can see that the Republican share of the vote has been getting slimmer and slimmer, and the Democratic share of the vote has been increasing over time. This is because of the rapid growth of Atlanta and this huge population boom that's happened in Atlanta and in the Atlanta suburbs. And I'll show you that in a second. But as you can see from this voting history, the state of Georgia, it's been very solidly Republican, except for 2 exceptions, which were Clinton and Joe Biden. Joe Biden was able to pull off a narrow win there in 2020, but the question is, will he be able to in 2024, or whoever runs as the Democrat, will they be able to pull off another win? So this is Georgia, and these are the precincts. You can see here that all of the blue is in Atlanta in this area, and this is organized into the congressional districts. So I'll point out down here, the 2nd district is Democrat, or held by Democrat right now. The 13th, 5th, 4th, 7th, and 6th districts are all held by Democrats as well. The 7th and 6th districts are new Democrat districts. In the past, it's just been the 2nd, 13th, 5th, and 4th, but the Democratic expansion into the Atlanta suburbs has allowed them to gain both the 6th and 7th district. So as you can see, Georgia is very much a conservative state, but they do have this huge population in the Atlanta area, and that's sort of carrying the Democratic Party in the state. So I'll show you Atlanta. It didn't used to be as Democrat as it is now. So if you look at these counties here, and this is the 2020 election, Fulton County, Cobb County, Gwinnett County, DeKalb, they all voted very heavily Democrat this year. A county like Cobb County, it voted 14% more for Biden than for Trump. Cobb County used to be one of the most conservative counties in the entire country, and it's done a complete 180 flop and is now a Democrat county. This is largely because the white population in Cobb County has decreased and a minority population has increased. And there's just been this huge immigration into Georgia. So let me show you the shift from 2016 in Georgia. Many counties in Georgia shifted to the right, but every county around Atlanta shifted far to the left. A county like Gwinnett County with 400,000 votes shifted 12 points more Democrat. Cobb County with 400,000 votes shifted 12 points more Democrat. Fulton County with about 500,000 votes shifted 5 points more Democrat. And a county like Cherokee County with about 150,000 votes shifted 10 points more Democrat. The Democrats are making tremendous gains in the Atlanta area, and if this continues, they will absolutely dominate Georgia. As you can see, there's other Democratic cities like Savannah. It's been growing more Democrat, but it's Savannah, Augusta, Columbus, Macon. It's not what's carrying the party there. Really, what the Democrats, all of their power is in Atlanta, and if they lose that, they lose the state. So I'll show you the size of the lead. As you can see in Atlanta, they have huge leads in Fulton, DeKalb, Cobb, Gwinnett, and Clayton counties. And these leads here, if they continue to increase, which is almost impossible at this point, in DeKalb County, only 15% of voters voted for Trump. But it's coming close to being 100% Democrat in Atlanta. They're absolutely dominating the area. And this is just because of the immigration and the change in demographics there. We're seeing a decrease in white voters in the Atlanta area and an increase in black voters. And there's been a slight increase in Hispanic and Asian voters, but nothing compared to the African American voters in the state. So, as you can see from this statistic here, 4.7 million people live in the 10 counties in the Atlanta area, which is 45% of the state's population. So if 45% of the state's population is voting 100% Democrat or close to it, then they're absolutely going to dominate Georgia, because they also have these other cities that I showed you, like Macon, Columbus, Savannah, Athens, Augusta. The rural areas in Georgia are very conservative, and that's what's carrying the Republicans there. Now, let me show you this chart here. And this is one of the more interesting charts because it explains why Georgia voted for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. So the Atlanta area, every county in that area, these are the 10 counties around Atlanta. Every county here has shifted to the left since 2004, and has shifted a significant amount. A county like Cherokee County, very Republican. It still is, but it's been shifting to the left. Fayette County, very Republican in 2004. It's almost a Democratic county now. A county like Cobb County, Douglas County, Rockdale County, very Republican in 2004, but they've been steadily shifting to the left. And these counties, they're suburbs, and this is a big problem the Republicans have been facing. The suburbs are going to the Democrats, and this is one instance where if the Republicans continue to lose the suburbs, they'll continue to lose states. And a state like Georgia, it's very important because it has 16 electoral votes. If they continue to lose these large states, then they're going to have no chance in future presidential elections. Okay, so I'll go to the next slide. And this is a slideshow I found online. It's really interesting, the statistics that are shown here. Only 55% of the population of Georgia was actually born in Georgia. And this is mainly because of the immigration from the Caribbean, from African countries, and from surrounding states. And we'll see more specific stuff on the immigration later. So more than 1 million people in Georgia speak a foreign language in their home. This is mainly Hispanic people who are speaking Spanish. And there's a small number of Asian people speaking languages like Vietnamese. So the population of Georgia, as you can see in this graph here, has been increasing, and it's been increasing at a faster and faster rate every decade. Georgia in 1970 had just about 4 million people, but in 2010 it has 10 million people. So this shows just how fast Georgia is growing. 4 of the top 20 fastest growing counties in the entire United States are in Georgia, and they're in the Atlanta area, as you can see here. So the change in the population is really all over Georgia. We're seeing a change in the number of people in Georgia, as well as in the demographics. So this is an interesting statistic here. In 1980, 72% of Georgia's population were white and 26% black. And then Hispanic and other barely made a dent in the numbers. But by 2010, the white percentage of the population had gone down to 56% from 72, and the percent of the population that was black has gone from 26% to 30%. The Hispanic population and the other population, which is mainly two races or Asian, has increased significantly. Now, in Georgia, it's not that the white population is decreasing; it's just their percentage of the overall population is decreasing. Um, so, as you can see here, by 2030, white people in Georgia will be a minority majority. They will make up most of the state, or more of the state than any other demographic, but they'll make up less than 50% of the state. The African Americans are growing very steadily, but growing faster is the Hispanic population. And the Hispanic population, it's very interesting because many of the Hispanics in Georgia are coming from the Caribbean, and it'll be interesting to see if the Republicans are able to appeal to those voters. Like in Miami, we saw in the 2020 election, the Cubans went very strong for Trump, and that was a huge shift that sort of handed Trump Florida. Hispanics are not like any other demographic because or race because there are many different cultures in the Hispanic overall name. You have Cubans, Mexicans, Guatemalans, El Salvadorians, all types of Hispanics that have different political views. And so, I'm not sure what which Hispanic country specifically is feeding most into Georgia, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the long run, because by 2030, 16% of the state being Hispanic means they'll have a very strong influence over who wins elections there. So, as you can see, the white population is not decreasing, it's increasing at a very slow rate. It's just the percentage of white people is decreasing because the percentage of black people and Hispanics and others are increasing very steadily. Okay, and finally, I want to show you this. So over here, we'll go to this historical population chart. You can see that the percent increase in population for each decade, it's been increasing. Like in 1950, it was 10% increase in population during that decade, but by 2010, it was 18%. Now, the decade 2000 had a 26% population increase, so they had a higher population increase in that year, and that was mainly due to increased immigration. Now, this chart's very interesting because it really shows you just how rural most of Georgia is. And then you have Atlanta, where it's very, everyone lives, well, near each other, and it's a very dense area. There's tons of people. So, Atlanta, you have a lot of red and orange, which corresponds to a denser population. And then around the state of Georgia, you have small specks of red and orange representing Savannah, Athens, smaller cities. And these cities have little influence over the politics in Georgia, but they do have a role. And all these rural counties, these are very, well, they're not dense at all. A lot of farmland and such, but what you have here are very conservative counties. So the Republicans can count on these counties to vote for them, while the Democrats can count on Atlanta and its suburbs to vote for them. The suburbs are a recent thing to switch Democrat. The suburbs have historically been Republican, but we've seen them switch heavily Democrat in past elections, such as the 2016 and 2020 election. All right, well, Thank you for watching, and if you're interested in seeing more videos like this, then subscribe to my channel. Thank you.